What is your position on NAFTA?
My position on NFTA, I think it's a terrible thing, and even though this show will probably air after the vote this Wednesday, but I expect my opponent to vote for NAFTA, and even if he don't, I think that NAFTA will create jobs just like they said will do, but they will be high-tech jobs. And looking at our educational system as we know it, we're not turning a very good product out of our school systems in terms of dealing with high tech. And that impacts on African Americans. I think African Americans is going to be left out of this, as they've been left out of most things in the past. And I don't believe that they're equipped right now to handle many of the high-tech jobs that this will create, and we're going to create some additional unemployment in the African-American community because other companies that are now located here will be moving to Mexico and Canada and so forth. Mm-hmm. And not only that, this will create some low-paying jobs for people here, and that's one of the problems that we have with drugs in this country. We created all the McDonald-type jobs in the 80s and didn't create any jobs. Now, that's not to say that people should be involved in drugs, but certainly if people had jobs to take care of their families, I don't think that you would have all these people out there selling drugs and dealing drugs out there in the community today if they had a job to go to. Many of them wouldn't be there. And I think this will have a devastating effect on the African-American community.
Okay. What about your platform on education? If you are elected, will you come up with certain kind of legislation that will enable all the schools to be equally funded?
Well, it would not be my job as a congressman to do that, but certainly I think the mandates that the federal government has set forth for education in this country, I think that the federal government should meet its responsibility and fund those mandates. Don't just mandate that the various school boards around the country do something and don't give them any money. I think that you have to come up with the money if you are demanding that that the boards carry out a certain policy enacted by Congress. But in the past, over the last 20 or 25 years, that has not happened. They have set forth all of these mandates, and they have not put any money to carry out those mandates, and I think that's a bad scenario. And I would like to see additional money coming forth for education to Illinois. I think that this is the difference in myself and my opponent. Is my opponent sit on the Ways and Means Committee, but you don't hear him talking. He knows that the Chicago school system is in dire need of money, and he knows that those federal mandates are there. But at the same time, he haven't said one word and voting out all kind of money for everything else. But he haven't voted $1 for the Chicago school system, and I think that's a travesty. Him sitting on the most powerfulest committee in Washington, and then running around bragging about it, but then he have not introduced one amendment to any bill to get additional dollars to the Chicago Board of Education. And we know that the only reason that Chicago is virtually on strike today is because of the fact that this made up of African American students and Hispanics. If it was if you had different students in there, additional white students in there, you wouldn't have the same problem. But Congressman Reynolds is the first African American that's serve on this committee, appointed freshman to be appointed to this committee in 14 years, as he said. Excuse me. But yet, he won't introduce legislation to try and deal with the problems that we're confronted with in Chicago. We don't have the money presses in the Illinois state capitol. They have them in Washington, and if they can find money for all of the military and the farm subsidies and all of this, certainly they should find money to educate our children. but they're talking about spending another $20 billion building jails. If you don't educate the students, you're never going to build enough jails. And I don't know why Congressman Reynolds don't understand that.
Well, who's endorsing you in your campaign?
Well, I've always taken endorsements from the people, and I will run this campaign no different. But certainly I enjoy the support of 98% of the African-American mayors and aldermen in my district that in the south suburb, and some of the aldermen in the city of Chicago and committeemen, and I enjoy that. But as you know, I've never sought any endorsement from the Democratic Party in all the years that I've been elected to office. I've always ran, and the people have always supported me, and certainly that's what I will be doing this time.
The second congressional district is certainly a tale of two cities, one impoverished, the other one prosperous. If elected to Congress, what would you propose, what legislation would you propose in order to balance out the scales?
The first thing that I think that we need to do in Harvey, for an example, in the Roseland area, I think that we need to put forth a housing policy that's amenable to people, and make HUD change their housing policy. I think that right now HUD is just foreclosing on people at will, and certainly I think that's a bad housing policy. And as long as HUD is foreclosing on the people, they should make some type of arrangements. If HUD is going to own the house, why put those people out on the street and create a homeless condition because a person have lost their job through no fault of their own? Why don't they turn that house into a Section 8 if that person was the owner of that house? Why don't they turn that into a Section 8 and allow that family to stay together and live there and adjust the rent accordingly until that person is back on their feet to repurchase the house? Why put them out in the street? I think that's a policy that HUD needs to change. I've talked about this for some time, and that's one of the things that I will be going to HUD talking about. We're not talking about bringing in additional HUD houses. I want to make it very clear. We are talking about if you're working on a job, you lose your job, your house is financed by FHA, then you should be permitted to stay in that house long as the federal government is going to own it. Because what's happening today is HUD puts you out of the house, then the vandals come along and tear up the house and take the furnace and take the light fixtures and all of that, and the next thing you know, we have to tear the house down. So this is taxpayers' money, over $100 billion across this country a year that we are losing. And this is only happening in the African American community. It's not happening in any other community across this country. And it seems as though to me that if we had a congressman who was worth his salt, he would get together with the other congressmen up there and HUD and work out a policy where that we could keep these people in their home. And rather than allowing the neighborhoods to become blighted with boarded up buildings and abandoned buildings, as we call them. And because this is your tax dollars that we're spending to tear down these buildings, and people are taking.
One of the people running in the race for the second congressional seat is Alderman Alan Streeter, and he is reportedly to have said that you and he are working on a deal whereas one of you would drop out the race in order to back the other one so the vote wouldn't be split. What do you have to say about this, and could you explain more about that?
Well, certainly I welcome Alderman Streeter dropping out of the race, and as a matter of fact, I questioned him why he wanted to get in, but if he's willing to drop out, certainly I want to commend him, and certainly
I didn't say he would drop. I said one of you. He said one of you.
Oh, well, I am. Well, I'm in the race too. I don't get in the race to just be making a statement. I'm running until March 15th. And if there's anybody thinking of getting out, certainly it would be Alderman Streeter. And hopefully Alderman Streeter would step out of the race and get together with me and support me in terms of electing a new congressman here. Certainly I've supported Alderman Streeter in past years. You know, Alderman Streeter if he stay in this race, he would be running for 2 offices as State Democratic Central Committeeman of the 2nd District and for Congress. And I think he don't need to run for both jobs. He should need to run for State Central Committeeman, and certainly I'm amenable to supporting Alderman Streeter for re-election for State Central Committeeman, but he should, and I would ask his support for the position as Congressman of the 2nd Congressional District.
Now, you've been so optimistic throughout the show, but just say that you do lose the race. Would that mean that your seat as far as state senator will be gone as well? Or?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, it will not.
Okay, just go ahead.
I don't expect to lose. That's number one. I don't expect to lose, and I'm not running to lose. And the people of the 2nd Congressional District, they will make sure that I will not lose the seat. And I put my faith in those people, and that's why I have an open door policy at my office where you don't have to run around to see me, and you can come to either my office, the one in the city of Chicago, other ones in the suburb as state senator, and walk in and see me. I'm not one of those politicians who you have to make appointments with and come in and see. You don't have to make appointments with me. And I've operated like this all my political life, is that I don't think if you are a servant of the people, I don't think that people are paying you, I don't think that it's necessary that they should have to make these long appointments and you come in next week if you have a problem today, and you have to wait until next week to come in and see me and ask my assistance in helping you with it. I want to be there, and I have been there for the people in terms of providing the service, and it's just an open door policy, and that's why I assume that I've been elected 6 consecutive times.
Okay. Now, if you win, who would you endorse for the position that you hold now?
When I win, we're talking about, I don't know what the situation is on that. As you know, I gave up the committeeman of the 9th Ward, the committeemanship of the 9th Ward. Alderman Shaw is now the committeeman of the 9th Ward, and that's they would have, the various committeemen of the district would have to get together and make that decision. And it would be a decision that I would be left out of.
Now, why do you feel that the South Suburban ministers are not supporting you? Why do you feel that they're throwing support behind Maryland?
But that's not true. There is about 3 or 4 South Suburban ministers that are not supporting me.
Well, I mean, that's a few compared to...
But the majority of the South Suburban ministers, overwhelming majority, is supporting yours truly.
Well, why would those 3 not support you?
Well, the same 3 didn't support me when I was running for the Senate against Senator Kelly. There's nothing unusual about that. And certainly I'm going to pray for those ministers because since I've been there, certainly I've tried to help, and I've made a difference in the community in terms of representing the people in the South Suburb. So some of the same ministers that didn't support me, I put a $15,000, made sure that a $15,000 work program went into his church over the summer. But, and then he hired all of the people that he wanted to hire, and I don't hold that against him. He did what he was supposed to do. My job was to bring it there, and that's what I did. That was just one program that I wanted to mention. When you talk about Country Club Hill, they didn't have a field house before I went to the, was elected the senator at Community Park on West 175th Street. I brought $300,000 out there for him, a community park. This year, Harvey had a civic center committee set up and never was funded. I put $100,000 in that. This year, Robbins, for his incinerator that we fought so long and hard about, that's over a $300 million project that's going into Robbins that will enable the people of Robbins to have jobs, and certainly it'll give them a tax base, and that's the first time that has happened in 75 years in the existence of that town. When you talk about West Pullman in the city of Chicago, North Pullman, and East Pullman, $3.2 million there for Mrs. Hughes, who head that historic organization over there, to redo the streets and do the buildings over there. I could go on and on about money that, this is not money that's last year. This is money that I put in the budget this year and brought back to the district that people can see. When you talk about the street resurfacing in my ward, in the portion of my district and that I represent, we're talking about almost $170 million throughout my district. So we're talking about a lot of money. If you ride in the south suburb, you see streets being resurfaced, major state routes are being resurfaced every day. Mm-hmm. So I understand what I'm doing in terms of if they want me to vote on something, certainly they have to give something to the people of my mm-hmm. district. And I'm concerned about that, and I want to make sure that that happens when I get to Congress. After I'm elected, I'll make sure that that happens for the people of my district.
Now, skeptics of Congressman Reynolds say that a lot of his campaign money came from people outside of the 2nd Congressional District. Now, if he, now that he's running again, he will not only have a large campaign purse, but he'll also have the backing of a lot of political people behind him. How do you plan to offset that?
Well, the first place, I don't think that money is a problem in this district. I don't think that he can have millions. James Byrne had millions of dollars. Hal Washington beat her with probably around $75,000. She had 11 million. Jane Byrne had 11 million. Hal Washington had probably 75,000, and he became mayor of the city. So it doesn't make any difference how much money the Rosenkowskis or the Daleys shift in there. And certainly Daley will be shifting money into that campaign because Congressman Reynolds' wife happened to be the scheduler for Mayor Daley. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't think Daley should dictate what happens in this district. And I'm not just running against Mel Reynolds, I'm running against the mayor of the city of Chicago, along with the most powerful, the second most powerful man in America, which is Dan Rosenkowski, who's going to be putting millions of dollars into this race. And what I've said in the churches that I've spoke at across this district is take the money and vote for me.
If you, Streeter, and Reynolds stay in the race, don't you feel the possibility of a white candidate coming up and through divide and conquer win the race?
No, there's no possibility of that. Mm-hmm. The district is only 30% white in the first place, and it's 75% of those are Republican. There is no way that a Republican candidate, white candidate, is going to win in this district. And I've never concerned myself. When you look at the statistics and you think about back to 1980, when people are intelligent in the 2nd district, and that's what you have to understand here, is that I recall Hal Washington ran in 1980. He ran against an incumbent, the late Benny Stewart, was the congressman at that time. And there were another candidate, a third candidate who happened to have been a ward committeeman at that time. Hal Washington was serving in the Senate, same as I am. Now, I'm no Hal Washington, and I'm not suggesting that. But it just goes to show that an intelligent electorate understands the difference. And the people in the 2nd Congressional District is intelligent. And they understand what's happening here in this district, and they know that I've, over the years that they've known me, and many of them have come to Springfield, and they know that I have not been dictated to by any boss from the 5th floor City Hall or anywhere else. I will not be dictated to. The only people that I'm dictated to is the people that put me in office, and those are the people that I represent, and all of the people of the district. And that's the way I like to have it. I don't want nobody calling me up from City Hall telling me about I got to do this and got to vote this way and got to vote that way. I'd rather for the constituents to call me up and tell me they would like for me to vote this way and vote that way. And certainly I'll listen to those.
Okay. What is your plan for cleaning up environmental hazards in the 2nd Congressional District?
I think this is one of the problems. We try to bring in a program and businesses into Harvey, and I think this is one of the programs that our congressmen have not addressed. As you know, Harvey is one of the communities that need some of the Superfund money. and Congressman Reynolds have not attempted to bring any of the Superfund money into this district. You take over by CID over here, around the expressway, east side here, need some of the Superfund money to clean up, because there is, as you know, one time the 2nd Congressional District was one of the most industrialized district in the nation. And they had a lot of, they buried a lot of hazardous waste and so forth out there. And certainly you need some of that money to bring some of that money here. And the present congressman haven't attempted to do it. He don't even know it exists.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your comments. We're out of time, but I thank you for coming to the program and for giving us insight into your candidacy. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you. I'd like to thank my guest again for coming to the program. And to you, as always, on behalf of Here We Are, God bless.